What if Britain's greatest post-World Cup shock was not losing a match, but losing its own people to America? They arrived expecting chaos, disappointment, and every warning they had heard back home. Instead, they found freedom, warmth, opportunity, and a country that made ordinary life feel bigger. So why are so many now dreaming of returning permanently, and what did America show them that Britain could no longer provide? America broke the story. The strangest thing British visitors brought home from the 2026 World Cup was not a jersey, a souvenir cup, or a phone full of stadium videos. It was the uncomfortable realization that the America they had been warned about seemed to disappear the moment they actually arrived. Across much of Europe, the United States is often presented through its loudest 10 seconds. A protest in one city, a police siren in another, a political argument on television, and suddenly an entire continent-sized country is reduced to one endless emergency alert. From London to Berlin, headlines can make a trip to America sound like something between a survival exercise and the opening scene of an action movie. Apparently, every street comes with danger, every conversation becomes political, and every peaceful afternoon is simply waiting for dramatic background music. Then World Cup 2026 opened the front door, and reality walked in without asking permission. Visitors moved through American cities and found something far less frightening and much more dangerous to the old narrative: ordinary life working surprisingly well. Airports were busy but organized, families filled restaurants. Fans from different countries shared sidewalks, stadium lines, hotel lobbies, and food courts without society collapsing before halftime. People drove to work, stopped for groceries, argued about barbecue sauce, and carried on with the quiet confidence of a nation that had no idea it was supposed to be terrifying. That contrast felt especially sharp for travelers arriving from places such as London, Paris, or Brussels, where public life can be more reserved and daily space often feels tighter. In many American cities, roads stretch wider, stores stay open later, parking lots seem large enough to qualify for their own zip code, and strangers are more willing to speak first. None of that makes Europe lesser. It simply makes America feel different in a way no television panel can reproduce. The deeper surprise was emotional. America did not feel like a country constantly apologizing for its size, energy, or ambition. It felt comfortable being itself. The flags were visible, the portions were generous, the stadiums were enormous, and the people often carried a kind of public optimism that can seem almost suspicious to anyone raised on British understatement. That may be why so many visitors became attached so quickly. They came expecting a nation overwhelmed by its problems, yet they found a place still moving, building, joking, welcoming, and believing tomorrow might be worth getting excited about. Even the ordinary details began to feel memorable because they contradicted years of secondhand impressions. The media had offered them a warning label. America handed them a front row seat. By the time the World Cup journey was ending, the hardest part was no longer deciding whether America had been misunderstood. The harder question was why going home suddenly felt like leaving the more exciting version of life behind. America talks back. The addictive part of America may begin with something so ordinary that most Americans barely notice it. Strangers speak to one another without first submitting a formal request. A British visitor can spend years learning the quiet choreography of public life. Eyes forward on the underground, headphones firmly in place, and conversation kept within the legally permitted circle of people already known. In London, an unexpected "how's your day going?" from a complete stranger can briefly feel like the opening move in either a sales pitch or a police investigation. Then America answers with the social volume turned up. At a gas station, someone asks about the flight. In a grocery store, a simple question about an aisle becomes a 3-minute conversation about where the visitor is from, which city they have enjoyed, and whether they have tried the barbecue yet. Nobody has exchanged business cards, family histories, or emergency contacts, yet the interaction somehow carries the warmth of a neighborhood reunion. This is where American friendliness becomes more than good manners. It creates a feeling of immediate participation. Visitors are no longer standing outside the culture and observing it through glass. They are being pulled into the room, handed a conversational microphone, and invited to join whatever's happening. The testimony in the footage gives that impression unusual weight. One speaker had lived in the United States for more than 10 years, including roughly 3 years in San Francisco and 7 in Houston. Another pair said they had traveled through around 80 countries, with one placing the total at 83, yet they still described American hospitality as unusually memorable. That is a far broader comparison than a single pleasant weekend in Florida. The reason this becomes so appealing is not complicated. Human beings relax when they feel acknowledged. A cashier remembering a foreign accent, a family making room at a cookout, or a stranger holding the door turns an unfamiliar country into a place where the visitor already has a small role. European reserve has real value, especially in cities such as London, Stockholm, or Berlin, where giving people space is often considered respectful. American openness simply follows a different rulebook. It treats warmth as the default setting rather than a reward unlocked after 6 months of careful acquaintance. Naturally, this can be overwhelming. Some visitors probably enter Target looking for toothpaste and leave knowing the cashier's favorite football team, preferred barbecue sauce, and cousins' college plans. America does not always offer small talk and sample size. Sometimes it arrives in the family pack. Yet that generous social energy explains why leaving can feel strangely emotional. The attraction is not merely that Americans are cheerful, it is that daily life repeatedly tells newcomers, "You are welcome to join us." After experiencing that often enough, returning to a quieter routine can feel like somebody suddenly lowered the volume on the entire world. America says yes. There's a cultural habit in America that many European visitors do not notice immediately, yet it often becomes one of the hardest things to leave behind. People are allowed to sound hopeful before they have earned the right to be certain. That sounds simple, but it changes the emotional atmosphere of daily life. In Britain, self-deprecation is almost a national art form. It keeps people grounded, makes conversation funnier, and protects everyone from taking themselves too seriously. London can turn one raised eyebrow into a complete review of your business plan. Manchester may offer excellent advice, but it often arrives wrapped in enough skepticism to survive heavy rain. Across parts of Northern Europe, especially in cities such as Stockholm, Copenhagen, and Berlin, modesty is highly valued, and public confidence can easily be mistaken for showing off. America plays by a louder set of rules. Mention a business idea in Dallas, Nashville, or Phoenix, and somebody may ask what you need to get started before anyone has explained why it might fail. Talk about changing careers, moving states, opening a food truck, writing a book, or building something in your garage, and the first response is often practical rather than suspicious. The dream may still collapse by Thursday, but at least Monday morning gives it a fair hearing. That difference appears repeatedly in the source material, where American culture is described as more encouraging toward ambition, while British reactions are portrayed as more cautious and doubtful. The contrast is expressed humorously. In one place, a dream attracts a list of problems. In the other, somebody asks whether the project accepts credit cards. What makes this attitude so addictive is not blind optimism. Americans understand failure perfectly well. The country has enough abandoned gym memberships, failed restaurants, and half-finished home projects to prove it. The appeal lies in the social permission to try without first apologizing for wanting more. That permission matters because confidence usually arrives after action, not before it. A culture that waits for certainty may produce fewer embarrassing mistakes, yet it can also prevent good ideas from surviving their first awkward week. America often treats the awkward week as part of the package. The first version can be ugly, the sign can be crooked, and the website may look like it was designed during a lunch break, but the door still opens. This is why American energy can feel almost physical to visitors. It appears in new businesses, college towns, sports culture, local fundraisers, and ordinary people discussing plans as though tomorrow has already cleared space for them. Even when success is unlikely, enthusiasm is rarely treated as a character flaw. Europe offers deep traditions, social stability, and a strong instinct for caution. America adds another possibility. Perhaps life can be edited while it is still being lived. That idea stays with people. Once you have spent time in a culture that answers ambition with, "Why not?" returning to a place that begins with, "Be realistic," can feel like leaving a room where somebody had finally opened the windows. Space gets addictive. A British family can spend years negotiating over whether the dining table should be moved 6 inches closer to the wall. Then they arrive in America and discover houses with a separate room for laundry, another room for storage, a garage large enough to swallow 2 cars, and a backyard where the nearest fence appears to be observing from another county. That kind of space does something to people surprisingly quickly. In London, housing often teaches residents to treat every square foot like valuable airport luggage. A narrow hallway becomes a shoe rack, a windowsill becomes a bookshelf, and a second bedroom may also serve as an office, gym, drying room, guest room, and emotional support cupboard. The arrangement can be clever and charming, but it requires the planning skills of a submarine commander. Much of America offers a different rhythm, especially beyond cities such as New York, San Francisco, and Boston. Across Kansas, Texas, Tennessee, Ohio, or the Carolinas, visitors can encounter detached homes, broad yards, large garages, and neighborhoods where buildings have enough breathing room to stop overhearing one another. The source material describes a move from London to rural Kansas where land, chickens, sheep, and an open view stretching roughly a mile replace the compact pressure of city living. It also points to the sharp contrast between buying acreage in parts of America and paying heavily for a small London apartment where the neighbor may feel close enough to share the same sneeze. This is where American space becomes more than a real estate advantage. It changes how daily life feels. A larger kitchen makes cooking feel less like solving a puzzle with hot pans. A garage allows hobbies to remain assembled instead of being folded, stacked, and hidden after every use. A backyard gives children room to run, adults room to grill, and dogs room to conduct urgent investigations into absolutely nothing. The attraction is not simply ownership, it is the absence of constant compression. In central Paris, Amsterdam, or London, density helps create beautiful streets, excellent public transport, lively cafes, and neighborhoods where almost everything is close. That compactness has enormous value. Yet it also means privacy and storage can become premium goods, sold with the seriousness of vintage wine. American suburbs and smaller cities offer another bargain. Daily distances may be longer, and a car often becomes essential, but the reward is room around the edges of life. Groceries can be bought for an entire week. Holiday decorations do not need to live under the bed. Relatives can visit without sleeping 3 feet from the refrigerator. Even silence feels larger. That may explain why some World Cup visitors begin imagining more than an extended vacation. After several weeks of wider roads, larger homes, and open land, returning to a compact apartment can make familiar walls appear to have moved inward while nobody was looking. America's great luxury is not always marble, designer furniture, or a skyline view. Sometimes it is a spare room with no urgent purpose, a driveway that does not require parallel parking, and a backyard where Saturday afternoon can spread out comfortably. Once people experience that freedom, square footage stops looking like a measurement. It starts feeling like possibility. America goes bigger. A European football fan may understand 90,000 seats at Wembley. What can still catch them off guard is discovering that, in America, the stadium is only the beginning of the show. The parking lot becomes a festival before the gates even open. Families unfold grills, coolers, folding chairs, team flags, portable speakers, and enough food to suggest nobody trusts the concessions inside. Strangers trade jokes over smoke from the barbecue, children throw footballs between parked trucks, and entire groups arrive hours early because the waiting itself has been turned into entertainment. That is where American sports culture reveals its secret. It refuses to treat enjoyment as something that begins at kickoff and expires at the final whistle. Many famous European grounds are shaped by a different tradition. Anfield holds roughly 61,000 supporters, the Emirates Stadium just over 60,000, while Paris Saint-Germain's Parc des Princes accommodates around 48,000. These places can create extraordinary intensity because the crowd is packed close to the pitch and history seems embedded in every stand. America does not try to copy that intimacy. It takes another route entirely, building an entire world around the game. SoFi Stadium in California holds about 70,000 spectators and can expand beyond that for major events. AT&T Stadium in Texas normally seats around 80,000, with even more people admitted for selected occasions. Its giant center-hung video board stretches approximately 60 yards, meaning the screen itself is almost long enough to begin demanding its own locker room. Then there is Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, where a full-size pirate ship fires its cannons during Buccaneers celebrations. Somewhere in the planning process, an American looked at professional football and decided the missing ingredient was naval artillery. More impressively, everybody else apparently agreed. That playful excess is exactly what becomes so memorable. The American goal is not merely to show visitors a match, it is to make the entire day feel worthy of being remembered. Music follows fans through the entrances, enormous screens turn replays into public theater, food choices run from barbecue to nachos, and halftime can arrive with enough lighting and choreography to make a European club presentation look like someone forgot to charge the speaker. The deeper appeal lies in America's refusal to feel embarrassed about enthusiasm. In parts of Europe, sophistication can mean keeping emotion under control until the game provides a respectable reason to release it. American crowds often arrive emotionally dressed for the occasion. They paint their faces, build costumes, decorate vehicles, sing badly, cheer loudly, and treat participation as part of the ticket price. That energy becomes addictive because nobody is asked to observe politely from the edge. The event gives people permission to become louder, sillier, and happier than ordinary life normally allows. A quiet accountant from Ohio can spend Sunday wearing foam cheese on his head, and society agrees not to raise further questions. This is why American spectacle stays in the memory long after the score is forgotten. Europe may offer a sacred football ground where generations share the same songs. America offers a stadium, a concert, a cookout, a family reunion, and occasionally a pirate attack before dinner. Visitors do not simply leave impressed by the size, they leave wondering why everyday life back home suddenly feels as though somebody turned the entertainment setting down from 10 to 4. America spoils you. The real danger of spending too much time in America is not that visitors lose their way home. It is that home begins to feel strangely inconvenient once they return. America has turned convenience into a daily expectation rather than an occasional luxury. A traveler can stop for fuel, use a spotless restroom, buy a hot meal, pick up medicine, grab a phone charger, choose from an entire wall of cold drinks, and leave with a decorative wooden sign nobody planned to purchase. Somewhere between the gas pump and the beef jerky aisle, a simple roadside stop quietly becomes a small shopping expedition. That experience feels especially unusual to people arriving from older European cities, where daily life was built around compact streets, smaller stores, and shorter operating hours. In central London, Paris, or Rome, convenience often means having several useful places within walking distance. America follows another philosophy. Instead of placing everything nearby, it places almost everything under one enormous roof and surrounds it with enough parking for a minor league baseball team. Buc-ee's captures this idea perfectly. Some locations have more than 50 fuel pumps, large retail areas, extensive food counters, and restrooms famous enough to become part of the attraction. The source material describes these giant stops as something far beyond an ordinary gas station, because visitors enter expecting fuel and discover what feels like a department store wearing a beaver costume. The appeal goes deeper than size. American convenience is built around reducing small frustrations before they have time to ruin the day. Drinks arrive with free refills in many restaurants. Ice is offered with the confidence of a country that apparently owns a private glacier. Stores carry multiple versions of the same product because somebody, somewhere, wants a barbecue-flavored almonds at 9:30 on a Tuesday evening. At first, all that choice can seem excessive. A British shopper who only wants toothpaste may face an aisle offering whitening, cooling, strengthening, sensitivity protection, charcoal, baking soda, herbal mint, and something promising 12 benefits before breakfast. Yet after several weeks, the abundance stops feeling ridiculous and begins feeling considerate. The system assumes customers have different preferences and tries to meet them before they need to ask. That is the part people become attached to. In many European countries, customers adapt themselves to the structure around them. They learn the closing times, accept the smaller selection, carry coins for certain machines, and organize errands with military precision. America often reverses that relationship. Businesses compete to adapt around the customer, extending hours, adding drive-through lanes, offering larger selections, and turning routine purchases into comfortable experiences. Naturally, convenience has costs. Larger stores require more land. Driving becomes necessary in many areas. An endless choice can leave someone comparing cereal boxes long enough to miss dinner. Still, the emotional effect is powerful because daily life feels less resistant. America does not merely sell products. It repeatedly asks, how can we make this easier? After getting used to that question, returning to a shop that closes early, offers 2 choices, and treats ice like a controlled substance can feel surprisingly personal. That is how America spoils visitors. It does not demand their loyalty with a speech. It simply makes ordinary life so comfortable that inconvenience begins to feel like an unnecessary tradition. 50 Americas Inside here is the mistake that ruins many European predictions about America. They speak about it as though the entire country were one very large neighborhood. That assumption rarely survives the journey. The United States covers roughly 9.8 million square kilometers, while the United Kingdom occupies about 243,000. In practical terms, America is around 40 times larger. A visitor can fly for several hours, remain inside the same country, use the same currency, and land somewhere whose weather, food, accent, architecture, and daily rhythm feel almost unrelated to the place they just left. That scale creates a kind of cultural freedom. Europe usually divides across national borders. A journey from Britain to Spain brings a new language, different customs, unfamiliar mealtimes, and another political system. In America, comparable changes can appear while crossing a few state lines. Louisiana carries French, African, Caribbean, and Southern influences into its music and cooking. New Mexico feels shaped by Native American, Hispanic, and frontier history. Hawaii belongs to the United States politically, yet its geography and Polynesian heritage give it a character no mainland state could imitate. Texas behaves like someone handed a nation its own flag, brisket, weather system, and permission to introduce itself at full volume. Even the landscape refuses to follow one script. Florida can feel tropical, Arizona turns a desert into monumental scenery, Colorado lifts daily life toward the Rockies, while Maine offers cold Atlantic coastlines that could make parts of northern Europe feel unexpectedly familiar. California alone stretches from beaches to farmland, redwood forests, deserts, and snow-covered mountains. A visitor who dislikes one version of America has not reached the conclusion. They have merely changed channels. That variety explains why the country becomes difficult to finish. One trip does not settle curiosity because every region creates another invitation. New York may offer intensity, but Tennessee delivers music and slower conversation. Chicago brings architecture and deep dish pizza, while New Orleans seems to believe ordinary streets deserve their own soundtrack. The source material highlights this constant change in scenery, culture, regional food, and local character as one reason visitors remain fascinated after the original tournament has ended. European cities certainly possess remarkable differences of their own. Lisbon does not resemble Helsinki, and Naples could never be mistaken for Amsterdam. The distinction is that those contrasts usually require crossing international borders. America places a continent's worth of experiences beneath one flag, then connects them with interstate highways and airport departure boards. This creates an unusual emotional effect. Visitors stop thinking of America as a single destination and begin treating it like a collection they have barely started. One state becomes five become 15, and soon somebody who planned a 2-week football trip is discussing autumn in Vermont, barbecue in Kansas City, jazz in Louisiana, and a road through Utah as though they have accidentally joined a very expensive book club. America keeps curiosity alive because it does not reveal itself all at once. Every answer produces another question, while every region offers a fresh reason to return. That may be the most addictive discovery of all. Leaving the United States rarely feels like completing a journey. It feels like walking out during intermission. Maybe the greatest surprise was never America's size, convenience, or spectacle. It was discovering how quickly a foreign country could begin to feel like a place worth missing. Once the tournament ends and the flights depart, one question remains. Which part of America would pull you back first? Share your answer below, and if you believe this country still has stories the world truly needs to experience, subscribe to the channel and join us for the next journey across America.